At the very same time, something interesting was happening on Instagram. Meghan Markle was uploading videos of herself lighting candles, soft ambient lighting, a beautiful home setting, captions about atmosphere, mood, and the comfort of an evening ritual. And right beneath those posts was a link to her website where followers could purchase that exact candle for $64. Meanwhile, over at Netflix's Hollywood campus, two storage rooms were reportedly filled with those very same candles, the same jam, the same wine, and the same flower petal sprinkles. Employees were walking away with armfuls of products for free. Why? Because there was so much excess inventory that they simply needed to clear space. Same products, same week. One group paid full retail price. Another group carried them home in tote bags at no cost, and Meghan Markle said absolutely nothing. But this is where the story becomes even more interesting. Because today we're not just looking at an overstock issue. We've uncovered a paper trail that helps explain why that overstock exists in the first place. And that trail runs through an Instagram video showing jam simmering on a stove, a manufacturing facility in Illinois, a collection of non-disclosure agreements, and a website error that accidentally revealed $21.8 million worth of unsold inventory to the public. Read that again. Unsold jam piling up inside Netflix headquarters. According to the New York Post, Netflix employees have been helping themselves to free Meghan Markle products from her As Ever brand. A source claimed there are two storage rooms packed with As Ever merchandise. They're reportedly just handing it out to employees. One staff member allegedly left with 10 products free of charge. By the time we reach the dead end that Tom Bauer encountered while trying to determine who actually manufactures this kitchen and home line of jam, you'll understand exactly why those storage rooms ended up full. And you'll see something that, so far, nobody else appears to have connected. This isn't simply a brand having a rough time. It's a brand built around a story that doesn't seem to line up with the receipts. And now those receipts are public. Let's get into it. Tom Bauer has been covering Meghan Markle since before most people had even heard of her. His 2022 book, Revenge, reached #1 on the Sunday Times bestseller list. The palace rejected its claims. Meghan's team reportedly threatened legal action. Yet across 27 books, Bauer hasn't lost a single libel case. Not one. But what's happening now is different from anything he's done before. Back in 2022, he was writing about royal drama, palace hallways, personal conflicts, institutional power struggles. What he's doing today is something entirely different. Now he's following a supply chain. He's openly stated that he spent, in his own words, a great deal of time and money trying to discover where Meghan's jam was produced and who supplied the jars. That's no longer the work of a royal biographer. That's the kind of work investigative journalists do when they believe there's a bigger commercial story underneath the surface. He's not relying on palace insiders. He's digging through production records. And when he finally reached the end of that trail, he didn't find Meghan's kitchen. He found a wall of NDAs. Think about that for a moment. According to Bauer, Meghan and Harry's current difficulties are entirely self-created. He argues they no longer have major projects or major revenue streams, leaving them more desperate than ever. In his view, they don't know what direction to take other than attempting to reestablish themselves in Britain as some form of royal figures. Now consider the marketing. A lifestyle brand selling artisanal jam, supposedly inspired by recipes developed in Meghan's own kitchen. Yet the people actually responsible for making that jam are bound by agreements preventing them from discussing where it comes from. Jam manufacturers don't typically sign NDAs. Businesses operating transparently don't usually need legal barriers around their production locations. That level of secrecy generally exists for one reason: because the reality behind the product may not align with the story being presented to customers. And at that point, we're no longer talking about a royal controversy. We're talking about a consumer issue. We're talking about questions regulators pay attention to. We're talking about the kind of discrepancy that can permanently damage a brand, not because of bad headlines, but because the distance between the marketing narrative and manufacturing reality becomes difficult to defend. That's why this story matters. Palace drama generates headlines. Product trails create liability. Now let's get to revelation #1. The $100 candle she once called obnoxious. October 2016, Atlanta, Georgia. A conference called Create and Cultivate. Meghan Markle is on stage promoting her lifestyle blog, The Tig. She's building her personal brand and presenting a vision to her audience. And on camera, in front of a packed room, she says this: "There are no $100 candles on my site. That's so obnoxious. I only want things people can actually have. I've always tried to create an aspirational girl next door approach, something you can aspire to, but also realistically attain." Remember those words, because now take a look at what's currently available on her website. The As Ever Signature Scent Collection. Marketed as a luxurious collection designed to delight even the most discerning tastes. Price: $256. Not $100, not $150, $256. From the same person who once publicly said that $100 candles were obnoxious. And the individual candles? They're priced at $64 each. 2 candle sets? That's $128. And before we move any further, there's another detail worth mentioning. Some customers reportedly received candles that arrived without wicks, meaning people paid $64 for what was essentially a decorative jar filled with wax, complete with an empty hole in the center where the wick was supposed to be. The brand never released a public statement. Now, I know what some people are thinking. Inflation happened. Markets changed. After all, Joe Malone sells candles for hundreds of dollars. Some versions go for over $500. So what's the issue? But that completely misses the point. The issue is never the price tag. The issue is that Meghan built her audience around the idea of accessibility. She publicly argued that excessively expensive candles represented something out of touch. That message helped establish credibility and trust with her followers. Then years later, she turned around and offered those same followers a $256 candle collection, while, at the very same time, Netflix employees were reportedly taking identical candles home for free. That's not simply a pricing adjustment. That's a promise to your audience being broken. And while that contradiction is significant, it's not even the contradiction that leaves behind a paper trail. For that, we need to go to Illinois. Revelation number 2. The home kitchen that wasn't exactly a home kitchen. Let's talk about the jam. When the product launched in April 2025, the flagship item, the one that sold out in less than an hour, the one that eventually appeared on Oprah's favorite things list, was promoted as being inspired by a recipe Meghan Markle crafted in her home kitchen. And Meghan reinforced that narrative heavily across social media. Instagram videos showed fruit bubbling away in pots inside her California home. Her daughter, Lilibet, could be heard in the background describing it as beautiful. It was the complete package. Warm, personal, homemade. The kind of story that justified premium pricing and created an emotional connection between customers and the product. Then the Daily Mail uncovered something different. The jam is reportedly manufactured in Illinois by a company called Republic of Tea, roughly 2,000 miles from Meghan's home in Montecito. The same company is also said to produce her herbal teas, tea cakes, and orange blossom honey. Experts specializing in food labeling reviewed the jars and described the wording as intentionally vague. They noted that beyond the minimum legal requirements, there was little indication of where the product was actually produced. Intentionally vague. Think about those words. That's how labeling experts described a product connected to a brand whose manufacturers were reportedly operating under NDAs. Now put all of these pieces together. Instagram videos creating the impression of homemade production. Website descriptions centered around a home kitchen narrative. Product labels that avoid providing clear manufacturing origins. And legal agreements preventing key participants from discussing the process. At some point, this stops looking like a lifestyle brand that's merely careless about storytelling. It begins to look like a system designed to preserve a carefully managed narrative. That's the supply chain question. But the scale of what was actually being produced, and more importantly, what wasn't being sold, is where things become even more interesting. Because in January, the internet accidentally found out, and the numbers were enormous. Whether Meghan is genuinely happy or deeply unhappy, whether she understands what could happen years from now, If public interest disappears entirely and audiences grow tired of the jam, the speeches, and the endless Instagram content, that's a separate discussion. What matters here are the numbers. Revelation number 3, the website that accidentally told the truth. January 3rd, 2026. A Reddit user discovers what appears to be a flaw on the ASEver website. There was no limit to the quantity customers could attempt to place in their cart. When users entered absurdly large purchase amounts, the system automatically adjusted the order to match available inventory. And in doing so, it displayed the exact stock count. The screenshot spread rapidly: signature fruit spread trio, gift box, 137,429 units, flower sprinkles, more than 80,000 units, 2021 vintage Napa Valley Brut, 6,866 bottles. Estimated retail value of unsold inventory, roughly $21.8 million. But here's the part that makes this especially interesting. The people investigating this didn't stop at screenshots. They monitored the numbers. They tracked inventory movement in real time. Over a 24-hour period, between January 4th and January 5th, the signature fruit spread trio inventory dropped from 137,455 units to 137,429 units. That's just 26 units sold in an entire day. 26 sales out of more than 137,000 available units. A daily sell-through rate of approximately 0.001%. At that pace, clearing existing inventory would take more than 9 years. Read that again. More than 9 years. Now compare that with Meghan's comments during an appearance on Bloomberg's The Circuit. She described the rapid sellouts as a double-edged sword, saying that kind of demand is every startup's dream. She also spoke about moving from ordering a few thousand jars to placing a purchase order for 1 million units. The message being presented was simple. Demand was overwhelming, production had to scale dramatically, but the website appeared to be telling a very different story. Not long after the discovery, the glitch was fixed. Purchase limits suddenly appeared. Maximum 50 gift boxes, maximum 20 bottles of wine, and no public explanation was ever provided regarding what the inventory leak had revealed. Once again, the narrative shifted, and at this stage, that seems to be happening quite often. If you think that's where the story peaks, wait until you see what these inventory numbers meant for customers paying full retail prices, while Netflix employees were reportedly loading products into their cars for free. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. But first, let's talk about the candle that blew this entire story wide open. Revelation number 4. The $64 candle that couldn't actually be lit. November 10th, 2025. Parker Link Lauren, host of Spot On, orders a collection of as-ever holiday products to review. Orange marmalade, raspberry spread, strawberry spread, flower sprinkles, and the signature candle. This wasn't just any candle, it was named after Meghan's birthday, marketed as capturing the scent of her California home. Freshwater lotus, earthy sandalwood, California poppy. He opens the package on camera and immediately notices something is wrong. There is no wick, you guys. There's literally no wick. This has to be a joke. I'm serious, there's nothing to light. This is like Meghan Markle's career, failure to launch. The clip quickly spread across social media. Then things got even worse, because Link Lauren wasn't the only one. A verified customer on Trustpilot left a review saying, "The claim that these candles are hand-poured is hard to believe when many arrive without wicks. If I personally hand-poured a candle, I think I'd notice the wick was missing. This feels like cheap merchandise shipped out with no quality control." And that brings us to an important word: hand-poured. That's the language featured on the ASEver website. That's part of the reason these candles command a premium price. The phrase creates a very specific image in customers' minds. A person carefully crafting each candle. Human attention involved throughout the process. Hands on every step of production. So if these candles are genuinely hand-poured, how exactly does a candle leave production without a wick? Then came what might be the most self-inflicted mistake in the entire story. The brand reportedly sent one of these candles to Dan Wooten, one of Meghan's most outspoken media critics. He opened it. No wick. As one journalist joked, the story somehow became even funnier once the package was opened. To date, the company has released no formal statement addressing the wickless candles. No explanation, no apology, no acknowledgement whatsoever. The products remained available for purchase. Now, on the surface, that's a quality control issue. But the larger issue was unfolding in the background. Because while the promotional machine kept moving forward, while the Instagram content continued, while the carefully curated candle lighting videos kept appearing online, something else was happening behind the scenes. Let's talk about who was watching all of that content and what they were getting for free. Revelation number 5. 2 storage rooms, 1 Instagram story. February 2nd, 2026. Page 6 publishes a report. 2 separate sources independently confirm the same thing. Inside Netflix's Hollywood campus, 2 storage rooms, one located in the Icon Tower and another inside the Epic building, are reportedly filled with as-ever inventory. Jam, candles, wine, flower petal sprinkles, products stacked everywhere. Employees are allegedly leaving with 10 items at a time free of charge because, according to one source, there is simply too much excess inventory. Now let's look carefully at the timeline. November 2025. Meghan is posting candle lighting videos on Instagram. The purchase links direct viewers straight to the as-ever website. Customers are spending $64 per candle. Some of those candles arrive without wicks. At the very same time, employees walking through Netflix offices are reportedly receiving identical candles at no cost from storage rooms overflowing with inventory. Then, just a few months later, March 6, 2026, Netflix officially announces the end of its relationship with as-ever. Only 11 months after launch, a company spokesperson delivers the standard corporate statement. This was always the intended plan. Meghan will continue growing the brand independently as it enters its next phase. But an industry insider speaking to Us Weekly offered a far more direct explanation. According to that source, Netflix walked away because the show simply wasn't performing. Then came the detail that caught everyone's attention. The source claimed the streamer distributed truckloads of product to employees after the lifestyle series concluded. Truckloads. That's not typically the language associated with a thriving business partnership. Season 1 of With Love, Meghan reportedly ranked number 383 among Netflix's most-watched programs during the first half of 2025. Season 2 failed to reach the top 1,000. The holiday special didn't appear in Netflix's engagement report at all. Companies don't hand out truckloads of partner merchandise to staff and then quietly part ways while issuing cheerful corporate statements unless something has gone seriously wrong behind the scenes. The official statement suggested one reality. The storage rooms suggested another. But for a moment, I want to focus on someone else. Not Meghan, not Netflix, not Tom Bauer. I want to talk about the customer, the person who saved up the money or simply clicked checkout without thinking twice and spent $64 on a candle because they believed the story. They watched the Instagram videos, they saw the warm kitchen scenes, they heard the messaging about elevating everyday moments. They read the words hand-poured and thought, this feels special. This feels authentic. I want a piece of that experience in my own home. Then the package arrived, and there was no wick, just a container of wax with an empty hole running through the center. They contacted customer support. An automated reply arrived. No public acknowledgement followed. No statement explaining a production error. No announcement that quality control issues had been identified and corrected. Just silence. And the products continued to be sold. Think about that experience for a second. It's not merely the disappointment of receiving a defective item. It's something more specific. It's the realization that the story itself may not have been what you thought it was. The cozy home kitchen, the handcrafted process, the warmth of Montecito, the sense of personal connection, the reason you justified paying a premium price in the first place. And then, discovering that behind that carefully crafted image sits a supply chain so heavily protected that the people manufacturing the products reportedly had to sign non-disclosure agreements just to stay quiet about where everything came from. There's a phrase Meghan herself used back in 2016. She was standing on that stage in Atlanta explaining why she created the TIG. She spoke about accessibility. She spoke about community. She described the vision as an aspirational girl next door brand. Most importantly, she said she wanted to showcase things that people could realistically have. That's a promise. And when you build an audience around a promise, those people become more than customers. They become emotionally invested. They buy into an idea. They trust what you're telling them. So when the package that arrives at their door contains a $64 candle with no wick, something has gone wrong beyond ordinary quality control. Interestingly, As Ever has since introduced what might be its newest essential accessory: matches. Yes, really. Take a look at the presentation. The branded blue matchbox, complete with the As Ever logo, is featured as part of curated gift packages built around the company's candles and teas. One example is the $110 morning ritual and evening ritual collection, which combines tea, honey, a candle, and the branded matches. Quite a bargain depending on your perspective. But that's not the point. The point is that the customer paying full retail price was never supposed to see behind the curtain. They weren't supposed to know about the 2 Netflix storage rooms overflowing with inventory. They weren't supposed to learn that one product was reportedly moving at a pace of only 26 units in a 24-hour period. They weren't supposed to hear about an Illinois manufacturing facility. They weren't supposed to know about NDAs. All they were supposed to do was open the box, hold the candle, trust the story. And when that candle arrived defective, the result wasn't just disappointment, it was embarrassing. Because while they were staring at a candle that couldn't be lit, the Instagram posts selling the dream were still online. Now let's discuss what all of this potentially means from a legal perspective. Because this isn't simply a brand experiencing a difficult year. There are 3 separate areas of exposure here that very few people have clearly identified. Exposure number 1, the FTC and the home kitchen narrative. Section 5 of the FTC Act prohibits unfair or deceptive acts and practices in commerce. The FTC has repeatedly made it clear that the medium doesn't matter. A claim that would be deceptive in a magazine advertisement is equally deceptive on Instagram. The platform changes nothing. If the representation is misleading, it's still misleading. The raspberry jam was marketed as being inspired by a recipe Meghan Markle crafted in her home kitchen. That message wasn't limited to product descriptions. It was reinforced through Instagram content featuring her home and her child. At the same time, reports indicate the product was manufactured in an industrial facility operated by Republic of Tea in Illinois, roughly 2,000 miles away from Montecito. Experts who reviewed the labeling described the origin language as intentionally vague. Think about all of those pieces together. Vague labeling, social media content creating the impression of home production. ND, as restricting discussion from those involved in manufacturing. Taken collectively, that stops looking like a simple misunderstanding. It starts looking like a carefully constructed narrative designed to create a specific impression about where the product came from. And under U.S. consumer protection law, there is a term for that: deceptive marketing. Exposure number 2, consumer protection liability and defective products. California, where As Ever is based and where many of its customers are located, has some of the strongest consumer protection laws in the United States. One of them is the Consumer Legal Remedies Act. Under that framework, consumers can pursue class action claims against businesses that allegedly misrepresent a product's quality, characteristics, or standards. Now consider the facts being discussed. A luxury candle marketed as hand-poured, priced at $64, documented customer reports of candles arriving without wicks, no public statement, no recall, no announced remediation effort, and continued sales of the same product line while complaints remained publicly visible. That is precisely the type of scenario consumer protection statutes were designed to address. And the barrier to initiating legal action isn't particularly high. One law firm, one motivated customer, one filing. Then comes discovery. And discovery could become extremely uncomfortable for any brand whose manufacturing relationships are protected behind layers of NDAs. Exposure number 3, the $21.8 million inventory question, and what it says about Netflix's departure. Of all the numbers we've discussed, this may be the most important. when the website glitch exposed As Ever's inventory levels on January 3, 2026, observers calculated the retail value of unsold stock at roughly $21.8 million. That revelation surfaced just 2 months before Netflix ended its involvement. Remember, Netflix wasn't merely distributing content. The company had invested through its consumer products division. Its reputation became tied to a partnership intended to transform a lifestyle series into a successful retail business. Yet the show's first season reportedly ranked only 383rd on the platform. Season 2 failed to enter the top 1,000. The holiday special disappeared from engagement rankings entirely. And by February 2026, reports indicated Netflix employees were taking free products from storage rooms packed with excess inventory. Then, only 11 months after launch, Netflix exited. Officially, the company framed the decision positively. The public statement emphasized future growth and independence. Industry sources painted a different picture. One source summarized it this way: Netflix ended the relationship because the show wasn't performing, and employees were given truckloads of product after production wrapped. Truckloads. That's not language usually associated with a thriving partnership. Healthy partnerships don't end with inventory being distributed internally by the truckload. Successful investments generally aren't abandoned after less than a year. Netflix isn't known for walking away from major successes. Netflix walks away from projects when the numbers stop making sense. And the person ultimately absorbing the cost is the customer who clicked an Instagram link, believed the story being sold, and paid for a candle that couldn't even be lit. So let's review what we actually know. In October 2016, Meghan Markle stood before an audience and argued that $100 candles were obnoxious. She promoted the idea that products should feel accessible, attainable, within reach. That philosophy wasn't a side note. It was the foundation. It was the core identity she used to build trust with her original audience. Then came 2025. Meghan launched a lifestyle brand. She uploaded Instagram videos showing jam simmering on her stove. Her daughter appeared in the content. The messaging revolved around phrases like home kitchen, hand-poured, and inspired by life in Montecito. A story was carefully built. And then customers were asked to pay $64 for a candle. Some of those candles arrived without wicks. The jam was manufactured in Illinois. The candles reportedly reached customers missing essential components. Inventory data suggested only 26 units sold over a 24-hour period, despite more than 137,000 remaining in stock. Manufacturers operated behind NDAs. Netflix employees were reportedly leaving with armfuls of free products, while paying customers were charged full retail prices. And after only 11 months, Netflix itself exited the partnership. Tom Bauer didn't describe this as a potential bankruptcy story because it sounded dramatic. He described it that way because he followed the evidence. He followed the production trail. He followed the jars. Eventually, he reached a legal wall, and in many ways, that wall told him everything he needed to know. Because here's the thing about ND as in a supply chain. You don't usually deploy them to protect a basic recipe. You don't need them to guard a revolutionary secret about strawberry jam. What they often protect is a narrative. And when a narrative requires legal protection, people naturally begin asking why. The story being sold was simple. Meghan Markle in a beautiful California home. Creating artisanal products inspired by her daily life. Bringing warmth, intention, and elegance into ordinary moments. Making products that felt personal. Making products people could genuinely have. The reality described by critics looked very different. An Illinois manufacturing facility located roughly 2,000 miles away. Large-scale production. ND ads surrounding the process. While Instagram content continued presenting images of fruit bubbling on a Montecito stove. That distance between the marketing story and the manufacturing reality isn't just a branding issue. According to critics, it's the central issue. Because when the foundation of a brand depends more on storytelling than on transparent product origins, eventually the cracks begin to show. And when they do, the result looks something like this. 2 storage rooms on a Netflix campus filled with excess inventory. employees walking out carrying 10 products at a time for free, and customers paying $64 for candles that couldn't even be lit. There's one question I keep returning to, and honestly, I'm curious what you think. Tom Bauer says he spent significant time and money trying to determine where the jam was actually produced. He found NDAs. The Daily Mail found the Illinois factory. The website glitch exposed approximately $21.8 million in unsold inventory. Two separate sources documented the Netflix storage rooms. The manufacturers remain bound by confidentiality agreements. Customers reported wickless candles. The inventory figures disappeared after the website issue was fixed. The Netflix departure was publicly framed as a positive transition. And every time details about the operation seem to emerge, the response appears to be one of three things: a statement, a silence, or an NDA. So here's my question. The As Ever website describes its products as being crafted with care, warmth, and intention. If that's genuinely the case, if this is truly a personal, artisan-driven lifestyle brand rooted in Meghan's real life, then why does discovering where the jam is made require navigating a legal wall? What exactly is that NDA protecting? Let me know your theory in the comments. I've got my own thoughts, and they're not particularly flattering. I'll see you in the next one.